Okay, I will just start with the introductions. My name is Natasha Vortunen. I'm the program manager for Southeast PA Tech, and I want to welcome you to today's presentation on the business of doing business with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. As a refresher, a little bit about who we are. We are a procurement technical assistance center, and our mission is to assist businesses with learning how to be successful selling to government agencies, whether federal, state, and local, through seminars like this one or one-on-one counseling. We are funded by a cooperative agreement with the Defense Logistics Agency, and all of our services are free of charge. There are many PTACs throughout the country, but our Southeast PA offices serve the following counties: Berks, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Lehigh, Montgomery, Northampton, and Philadelphia counties. If you don't belong to one of these counties, you are absolutely welcome into this session today. And if you need assistance in finding your PTAC, please do reach out to me, but also in a chat later on, I will be putting resources of how you can find your own PTAC yourself. We today have joined forces with Richard Loeffler, a small business liaison of the VA, to ensure your procurement readiness as it relates to government contracting with the VA. Richard is an enthusiastic small business problem solver with over 30 years of experience in many areas, inclusive of finance, operation, contracting, and small business development in both private industry and presently with the federal government. For the last decade, Richard works as a small business liaison for the Veterans Affairs, leveraging his education, training, contracting knowledge, and experience. Amongst other responsibilities, he is tasked with maximizing small business utilization and analyzing procurement efforts. His diverse experience affords Richard the ability to bridge the enormous gaps. And I welcome Richard today, and I will let him take over from here. Appreciate you being with us here today, Richard.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate being here, the opportunity. But I'm Richard Loeffler, and I'm the Small Business Liaison for the Veterans Affairs, more specifically NCO4. And please don't worry about acronyms. They're unimportant. NCO4 consists primarily of Pennsylvania, Delaware, and parts of New Jersey. To give you some idea, there are 18 NCOs throughout the country. Before I move on, I would just want to mention something about our leadership and its absolute best. So I'm very fortunate that I get to work with NCO4. Leadership has always been way ahead of the curve in prioritizing and utilizing small business. So it's very important to us. And everybody needs to know that we want to do business with all small businesses, not just veteran-owned small businesses. I have to interject here and want to tell you the reasons why I do these outreach events, despite the fact that I'm an awful speaker. It's because I know small business, and I've sat through other small business presentations hosted by federal government agencies and officials and listened to their presentations. And while they're very neat, smooth, and provide a lot of information, they're also misleading or completely irrelevant. I don't know that any of you will benefit if I tell you what the VA spent last year, all broken down to a fancy pie chart, or what our budget is, who our biggest supplier is, or explanation of FAR Part 19. You don't need that. But this is what the government likes to give you most of the time because it's what they know. These are policy and regulation experts in charge of managing the small business world. It may sound like I'm anti-government, but I'm not. The VA, for instance, knows how to get the best value most of the time and the lowest prices. They're really good shoppers, but they don't understand small business. And again, they're policy experts and experts in the FAR. They're smart people, and I'm sure much smarter than I, but they should be creating contracts and interpreting policy, not running federal agencies' small business programs. So I want to make sure vendors are focused on the right things. And that's why I've taken a little bit of time here to get you to think a little differently. So for some background, I've owned and operated a small business, so I know what it's like to have to meet payroll, to secure a loan from the bank, and so on. I've been a small business consultant. I've worked for $1 billion business. Anyway, what I'm going to do is give you information from a business perspective rather than from federal contracting or compliance. So essentially, I'm presenting as one business owner to another, which is you. I've broken this presentation down into two parts. The first part, I'm going to tell you how the VA works, how the buying process works, and who the players are, the right people, the decision makers. And in the second part, I'll explain what you need to do as a business to maximize your chances of getting work. I want you to think of the VA as being broken down into two entities: the VISN, that's the Integrated Service Network, and the NCO, Network Contracting Office. Don't worry about the acronyms again, it's unnecessary. I'm oversimplifying, but this is how you should approach the VA. Two separate entities, people. First, the VISN. Think of the VISN as the hospital side or the program side. They are the ones who would use your product or services. They are the ones who would request them. The VISN is comprised of doctors, nurses, interior decorators, facilities people, everybody. And what the VA buys is pretty much everything. And if they don't have it, and you know your service or your product will do some good, then by all means, try to sell it to them. Because they're looking for, new help every day and new ways to do things safer and more efficiently. But okay, so the NCO, on the other hand, does not buy your products or services. The VISN does. The VISN folks are the right people, the decision makers that you want to approach. The NCO creates contracts on behalf of the VISN. So while the NCO technically buys and pays for goods and services, the VISN gives them the shopping list. Think of the NCO as pencil pushers. In fact, yeah, you may even want to forget that they exist, even though I'm part of the NCO. Next slide, please. As you can see, this is just a visualization of what I just told you. So looking at this, you can see that the VISN people are the people you need to sell to impress with your products and services. Say the head of facilities needs a chiller repaired, or housekeeping is looking for laundry service, or the administration needs a special consultant, or a doctor needs surgical sponges, or the kitchens need fresh fruit, or the OR manager needs disinfection services. Next slide, please. Okay, the VISN folks need things to run hospitals and clinics and other areas. So let me take you through a typical procurement. First, someone in the VISN needs something. Let's say the dental department needs new instruments, or the hospital needs to replace beds. The VISN person identifies the need. Let's say this time it's stretchers. It puts in a specific request by sending a form and description of what they want to the contracting people, the NCO. Quite often, they may list a specific brand or specific service vendor. Stryker, for instance, is a brand of stretcher they sometimes request. It could be that the Stryker stretchers are preferred because they're lighter or safer or easy to use. There could be 1,000 reasons. So VISN people do market research, which is essentially shopping. They would look at different brands of stretchers, talk to other hospital people, search online, ask nurses, doctors, find out what they use now, etc., and determine what company sells them, how much they cost, and when they can be delivered. Eventually, let's say they settle on the Stryker brand of stretchers because they can do this and that. So by now, you should understand who the real decision makers are. Anyway, the Vizient people submit a form which tells the NCO what they want. In this case, specifically, they want 10 Stryker brand stretchers. So next, contracting, the NCO gets this request, and they do their own market research with much greater depth and breadth. And they not only check the suppliers that the Vizient people suggested, but they search the market for other suppliers. Contracting people always want competition. However, the contracting people will not change the specifics of a product or service or alter the requirements of a product or service that the Vizient people requested. They're not going to tell the Vizient people that you need XYZ stretchers. The Vizient folks are the drivers. So from here, the NCO issues a solicitation, which you'd find on sam.gov, and essentially tells all vendors, this is what we want, it has to do this, and it has to do that. Or this service can only be done by the XYZ service company because theirs will be less downtime or because it's safer, for instance. And as an aside, wouldn't it be great if what you're selling is unique or specialized in some way, so that the VA requests your specific product or service because it's unique or better in some way? I'm jumping ahead, but soon I'll suggest that you may want to specialize as much as you can for this reason. That being said, the VA buys all sorts of goods and services, some being very simple, road salt, and some being very, very specialized, like bed bug sniffing dogs. And by the way, I have reviewed all of these contracts. So yeah, we buy everything. Anyway, then the NCO receives quotes or prices from businesses for these stretchers after going through all the offers, if there are any. Sometimes there aren't any. The CEO creates the contract, makes the award, and administers the contract throughout its life. Somewhere in there, as a small business liaison, I review these contracts to make sure we identify all small business vendors like you and make sure we consider your company. Anyway, if you look at the diagram and where it's highlighted, you'll better understand who the decision makers are, which is critical, and the direction this process usually flows. So I've explained how the VA works. Now I'm going to explain what you need to do as a business person, or part 2 of the presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, this may not seem like the most important slide, but it is. Well, it's one of 2. The info listed on the right is what most government officials will have you focus on, because this is what they know. Are you registered in SAM? Do you have the right NAICS code? Are you a woman-owned small business? Are you on the dynamic small business search from the SBA? Are you thinking about getting on the GSA, and so on? But what's much more important are the business considerations on the left, and I rarely hear these spoken about from government officials. For instance, is your product or service better? And can you demonstrate why it's better? Does your product or service save time, and can you demonstrate that? Does it make the nurse's job or doctor's job easier, for instance? Does your product or service reduce infections or accidents or make the hospital a safer place for both patients and employees? Does your product or service have a sustainable competitive advantage? So if you only come away with one takeaway from this presentation, make it an understanding of this slide and this information. Focus on your actual business first. That's incredibly important. Normally, if you're attending any government small business outreach, you'll only get what's on the right. And people walk away thinking, hey, if I do these things, I'll get work. This is very misleading. And so you need to know your priorities. But just because you're a small business and you're registered here and you've jumped through all the hoops, that doesn't mean you're any closer to getting any business. So the business questions and information on the left are fundamental to your business success. It's no different than what you focus on in the private sector. Don't get lost in all the red tape. As an analogy, let's say you're a company that sells and installs swimming pools. You might be registered in a particular county, or you might have to get registered there, or city in order to do business. But getting registered will not get you work. You might need to get registered eventually, but what will get you work are priorities on the left. A potential customer doesn't really care if you're registered anywhere. They assume you would be. What they want is, will you provide like something different or something better? You could provide value as expressed by the column on the left and your ability to articulate this. For instance, our pools are better than the leading company because they require less maintenance and they're warranted for 30 years, not 20. Or they come with a custom pool cover that fits perfectly, unlike generic rectangle ones that other companies give you. So know your priorities and ask yourself, why would the VA want to listen to me? Give the VA a reason to listen to you. Just being a small business and registered wherever and being procurement ready will not get you business. Some of you are probably wondering why I have a nuclear power plant on the left and a bicycle on the right. Well, there's something called the law of triviality. It states that sometimes people within an organization give disproportionate weight to trivial issues. There's a well-known example. A committee whose job was to review and approve the design for plans for a power plant spent the majority of its time instead on discussing about relatively minor but easy to grasp issues such as what materials to use for the staff bicycle shed, while neglecting the proposed design of the plant itself, which is obviously far more important and complex. Hey, I'm not necessarily saying that getting procurement ready is trivial, but well, maybe I am. But forget about the bicycle shed until you've got a solid design for the nuclear power plant. Focus on your products and services, your actual business. Don't get bike shedded, so to speak, by focusing your energies where they shouldn't be. So back to the pool company for a second. ABC Pools shouldn't use most of its resources getting registered in various cities and counties. They should first be able to answer questions like, why should anyone buy a pool from ABC Pools? As far as the red tape, the PTAX can help you immensely with this. And you don't need to pay anyone or go to
Richard, we have lost a connection for a little bit. Can you hear us? We will give him a minute to reestablish the connection. It seems like he's going to have to rejoin, so excuse us just for a moment. Apologies for the technical difficulty. We are reaching out to speaker to see if we can reconnect. Just give us a few minutes. I appreciate it. Our apologies, still trying to connect the speaker. Our sincerest apologies. We're still trying to connect. We'll give it another 3 or 4 minutes. If not, we may have to record a session and send it out to everybody or reschedule. Thank you all for your patience. We just received a word. He's still trying to get back in, so we'll give him a couple more minutes. Also welcome any counselors if they have any words of wisdom to share while we wait. Just feel free to unmute yourself and contribute to the discussion.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Claudia Hadley with the Lehigh University Southeast PA PTAC. Talking about
Claudia.
Zoom. Can you hear me, Natasha?
Yes, we can hear you. I just want to
Okay.
thank you for chiming in.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to talk about a little bit about two things. One is the Zoom is having a little trouble with freezing on my end too. So I wonder what's going to happen tomorrow with in my presentation too. So this is not the first time something with Zoom happens. So it's understandable. And then talking a little bit in reference of the VA verification that the business from service disabled veterans or veteran disabled entities are going through. They are changing the platform from the from the VA to the SVA. So you are not going to be able to upload any documents until January 1st. And that's going to be in the new platform, Small Business Administration. So all of the documents you need to upload in the new platform. We haven't received any training on that platform. So as of right now, they say that they're going to open January 1st. But we will let you know when is that gonna open. And if anyone has questions about anything that you can ask, we have several advisors here, and welcome to ask questions.
Thank you, Claudia. I think we're also going to move to the next slide. Just to believe there's some general topics of discussion for your review. Okay, let me see. All right, small business advice and tips. Okay. Then I would just like to piggyback on something that Richard has mentioned previously relative to just really working on your business. And there are many other sessions that I have attended previously. And generally, contracting officers can't emphasize enough to really focus on your capability, building your capability. So everything that we also counsel you on, as mentioned, relative to your certifications and registrations at the right places, those are all very relevant. However, being really expert at what you are looking to offer to VA is extremely important. So everything else is a technicality. So by the time you approach the government or respond to a specific solicitation, the assumption is that you are the expert at that very thing that you are looking to offer to them. So I believe that is the point that Richard is trying to drive home with everybody. So while all the other things are process, being an expert as what you're looking will make a process much easier. Or in other words, I think everyone's going to be a lot more cooperative to work through the process with you if you are the expert. You really understand everything associated with your business from the process, procedures, costs associated with those. So by the time you have those registration capability statement, that is just kind of like overcoming the red tape and making their job easier. So the assumption is that you have all of those things under your belt already. Okay, so we have, even though Richard is saying that he is trying to get back in, I believe he must have some major connectivity issues.
He can join by his phone.
I tried to reach him by his phone. Yeah.
Hello, Natasha?
Oh, yeah, he's trying. Yes, I emailed him. Yes. I emailed him that information that he can join by phone. Yes.
Hello, Natasha. This is Bruce.
Hi, Bruce. Thank you for.
Yes, I just wanted to make a couple of comments also. First of all, Richard Hoffler has been one of the most responsive small business representatives I've run into.
Very true.
Yeah, and he's been very, very, very good with clients. But I would recommend that if you contact him for anything doing with the VA, that you make sure that you have very specific questions. Just contacting and saying, hey, I'm a small veteran-owned business, blah, blah, blah. Where can I find work? That's not a good question to be asking someone like that. So his emphasis so far has been on trying to establish relationships with the people in the VISNs, and that can often be a real problem, finding out who those people are. So that's a constant ongoing problem, and our PTACs try to help you with that and try to help you navigate that whole VISN world. And also wanted to make a little bit of a comment about the change from the VA providing the certification for veteran businesses over to the Small Business Administration. As of about 3 days ago, they stopped taking any more applications at the VA, and the SBA takes it over, as Claudia had said, on January 1st. However, there is an interim process so that if you have not been verified as a veteran-owned business and you're interested in that, you can self-certify when you register through SAM. So you can put all the check boxes there that you are a veteran or service-disabled veteran business. What that does for you is it allows you a little leeway in saying that they will honor that in the interim until you can get fully qualified when the SBA process comes about. So if you haven't been verified and you're still interested in doing so before the 1st, you can at least self-certify in your SAM registration.
I appreciate that, Bruce, and I believe we have Richard back online. Richard, can you hear us? Hello, Richard. I see that you have joined.
Hey,
Hello?
Natasha, can you hear me?
Yes, we can all hear you. Welcome back.
Oh, finally. Sorry, I guess Xfinity gets an assist there.
Yeah, got it. Well, we're glad to have you, and we have just chimed in with a few points relative to certifications and made some comments relative to your previous discussion. Do you need a refresher of the previous slide, Richard?
No.
Okay. This is where
No,
we
the
were.
one you were on is good because it
Yeah.
just expands upon the slide that's up. Yeah,
Right.
that's fine.
Got it.
So
Excellent. Okay.
I'll get going. So let me expand upon the previous slide I told you was so important. So just assume your product or service is better, or just because you're a small business that you'll get work. Be pragmatic. And then ask yourself, does the VA buy what I sell? The easiest way is to find out is to go to sam.gov and search contract opportunities. I've included this and other links at the end of the presentation, but you not only get to see what agencies buy, but even better, you get to see the procurement history, the prices, who they bought it from. I would have loved to have known that in the small business world. If the government doesn't buy what you sell, will they consider it? For instance, let's say you have a unique product or service. Ask yourself if it would benefit the VA and how. Does it cut down on the number of infections, for instance? Put yourself in the place of a VA decision maker. This could be a doctor, a nurse, head of facilities, and ask yourself, why should I want your product or service? Why should I take the time and listen to you? So solve a problem, make life easier for someone, improve safety, for instance. Your potential customer is usually very busy. So you must give them a good reason to listen. Don't just try to sell them what they're already buying from others, unless you can differentiate your product or service, which brings me to my next tip. Specialize, specialize, specialize. If you're selling bags of sand, good luck. But if you have a unique way to reduce pain without drugs, for instance, then I think you're in good shape and you'd be successful. So it's very similar to selling in the private or corporate world. Need to give them the same reasons. For instance, the VA buys certain exam tables because they go a little bit lower than other tables, and it's easier for doctors and nurses to manage patients with these tables. Okay, if possible, try to quantify the benefits of your product or service. This is very important. Every vendor qualifies what they're selling by saying, hey, it's so great, but try to boil your products or service down to measurable benefits. For instance, this will save you X number of dollars over 5 years. This will decrease infections by 10%. This gives the buyer support to buy your product or service. Make it easy for them. For example, the big insurance companies do this all the time. Geico, Progressive constantly tell us we could save $500 or so. Search the internet for relevant statistics, or get someone with a finance degree from a good business school to help you, or someone, from one of the many MBA mills to get you to help you to figure this out. For instance, let's say XYZ company sells generators. They might be able to quantify their generators are actually much less expensive over 10 years, though the upfront cost is 15% higher. XYZ company explains that they're actually 25% less expensive over 10 years and a better value because their unit greatly reduces downtime and the need to rent backup generators. Another example might be your product will save nurses 20 minutes a day. I'm sure the VA would find this intriguing. So figure it out. Have someone help you crunch the numbers. Give the decision maker support for buy or backing to select you. So this is what you need to focus on. All of what I just said is what will get you business. And these are your business skills. This is what you use out in the private sector. For some reason, when people try to sell to the government for the first time, they get caught up in the red tape, like, oh, I have to do this and I have to do this. You know what? Don't focus on that. Focus on your business and get help becoming procurement ready through the PTACs. So, okay, this summarizes the 15 or 20 minutes or so of my babbling. The next slide is an important slide you need to understand, and every key aspect of doing work at the VA is boiled down to one sentence, or so I've tried. Next slide. Oh, there it is. The value of your products and services, your ability to articulate it to the right people, are the reasons why you'll get work. Let me just read that. The value of your products. Okay, what is the value? What can it do? Can you articulate this? Sometimes people can't, but you need to be able to do this. And are you approaching the right people? And that would be the people in the visit. So it really doesn't have to be that complicated. It really doesn't. Do what you're doing out in the private sector, only do it for the government. And let somebody else help you with the red tape. Next slide, please. Okay, now that I've beaten everything to death and then some, let's discuss what procurement ready means. So now you know how the VA buying process works, who the decision makers are, and what you need to focus on. Now is the time to get procurement ready, to wrestle with the red tape, as people say. If you're procurement ready, you're good to go. You're registered in SAM, you have your unique entity identifier, you have the appropriate NAICS codes, etc. And if you're not, again, go to the PTACs. They'll help you immensely. They'll even help you put a bid together if you need that. This is what they do. Next slide, please. So now your products and services, your business is all set. You've just gotten procurement ready. Now let's take a look at finding opportunities. Now, keep in mind that this is certainly not typical government language. Rather, I took the liberty of articulating this into terms that business people might better understand. The first approach I want you to consider is the most common by far, and it's what I refer to as going through the front door. It's a reactive approach to getting business. SAM.gov is the website where contract opportunities are posted. This is where the typical business would search for jobs to bid on. The government posts a need, an opportunity, and you and others react to it. So think of this as the front door approach. This is where the vast majority of vendors find and win opportunities. Keep in mind, however, that you might be the 10th company bidding on the same opportunity. Think of it as getting in line to sell your goods or services, albeit behind 10 other people or companies. This is why I tout specializing. There is a chance, however, that that yours may be the only company bidding. It depends upon what you're selling and what the VA is buying. So the next approach, and far more difficult, but perhaps much more lucrative, is what I define as going into the side door. It's a proactive approach to getting business, something I much prefer. If my product or service warrants it. So try to get an audience with a vision decision maker and get them to see your product or service as a must-have. This is where you articulate the unique value of your product or service. This is where you put yourself in the place of a decision maker and give them something that's important to them, instead of waiting at the front door behind others and bid on the everyone else is bidding on. You go into the side door and you convince the buyer that they need what you're selling. Then they might identify what you're selling as a need and submit a request to contracting. And folks, this happens all the time. So if it's possible that all this can be avoided and the VISN person can pull out a government issued credit card, and this would be known as a micro purchase, and the different thresholds, 10,000, 3,000, and I forget the others, but it's for services and goods, there are different thresholds. COVID might have ramped it up from 10,000 to 20,000. I don't know where it stands now, but okay, that's too much info. Another option for doing work with the VA or federal government is to test the waters first, so to speak, by working as a subcontractor for the prime contractor or winning bidder. Subnet is one place you can find opportunities. This is a low-risk, time-saving way to work for the VA, albeit indirectly. Subcontracting is an easier way to get your foot in the door. For an even greater number of subcontracting opportunities, perhaps more relevant, go to SAM.gov, use advanced search, and search both active and past procurements. Here you can find the winning bidders of projects and contact them for subcontracting opportunities. The PTEX can most likely help you with this as well and point out other ways to find opportunities. Additionally, on the SBA's website, you can access the directory of federal government prime contractors who have subcontracting plans. These are the prime contractors that have plans to use subcontractors because they have to. OSDBU and government agencies sometimes host small business conferences from time to time. And at these, you might actually get to a procurement decision maker, or you might meet a large business looking for small businesses like you. So it may be worth your time. Then we have the GSA subcontracting directory, another site to search for opportunities. And finally, what might turn out to be very helpful is Pathfinder. It's VA's relatively new website designed to walk you through selling to the VA, but it also gives people an option to innovate with a VA. So this could be really, really helpful to some of you. I haven't had a chance to go through it, but it appears as though the VA guides you step by step. So I would definitely check this out. So while I might be missing other avenues, this is how I envision different approaches to identifying or finding work from the VA or other federal agencies. And again, if I have something unique that it would be really helpful, that's where I'm going to try to get in the door and say, hey, look at this. This can cut down on infections. This can save you a lot of time and yada, yada, yada. That's really important. You know, and again, that's fine if you're bidding on what somebody else is bidding on. That's fine, but try to have some kind of edge. You know, don't turn what you're selling, your service or your products, into a commodity. Next slide, please. And this is the question most government people probably get but can never answer. Who do I contact? And as I stated before several times, the best you can do is contact a procurement decision maker a PDM in the VISN. I know I'm being Mr. Obvious here, as this can be really difficult. There is no front door that you can just walk right in, and there isn't necessarily a gatekeeper. You know, I should really be the gatekeeper, but I'm not in the VISN. I'm on the NCO. But this is where you utilize some business skills to get in to see somebody. And again, maybe you'll meet somebody at a small business conference. Once in a blue moon, the VA and different NCOs host industry days. And those are meant for companies like you to go in and say, hey, look at what we can do for you. We have this great stuff. You know, we can provide this service. And the VISN people actually come down to check out your stuff. Now, those don't happen very often. They should happen a lot more. And the VISN runs those. I'm your small business liaison. There's my email. Email is by far the most important way to get me, or the best way to get me your capability statement or your information, because then I can give it to anybody in, whether they're Pennsylvania, Delaware, or California, wherever. I can get that information. But if I spend 20 minutes on the phone with you, you tell me all about your product or service, I'm not going to be able to recite that, you know, to somebody else. That just, it doesn't work that way. That's why a good capability statement, sending it to me and giving me some information, is really your best bet. You might try social media to find some of these people. Find who works in the VA hospitals or clinics. OSDBU sometimes have direct access programs. That's the Office of Disadvantaged Small Business Utilization. But sometimes they have, you know, just watch for them. Maybe go on their site and check out what, you know, what they have that could help you. Also, go to the VISN4's website, and it's right there, and select Contact Us for a directory. Now, there are only phone numbers in there, and from what I've heard, a lot of them are dead ends or the voicemails are full. But I think it's worth to go through there, and if you actually get a human, you know, try to get where you're going. You know, if you need somebody in maintenance, like ask for somebody in maintenance. A lot of people would really like to help you, so please ask. And again, the last is Pathfinder, which I've already gone over. And if you could go to the last slide. It is just the website links for all of the entities that I've mentioned. And I have to say, thank you very much for your patience and attention. And if you have any questions, please ask away. Or, you know what, and if you don't get them answered, please send me an email. I might take a day or two to get back to you, and if I don't know the answer, I will find out for you. So please send me an email. And again, apologies for bouncing out of the presentation for 10 minutes or so. But I guess that is it.
Appreciate all your input, Richard, and time. I know that I personally know some businesses here that are looking to do business with the VA. So I do encourage you to either enter your question in the chat, and you can also unmute yourself and ask a question. This is your chance, right? So I believe Irene has a question for everyone's benefit. Are there certain contract vehicles that the VA uses, such as GSA schedules?
Yes. And keep in mind, again, we buy everything and so much of everything. And yes, sometimes we will buy something from the GSA on the federal supply schedule, and sometimes we won't. And it is easier buying from the GSA. However, you know, there are rules and regulations for small businesses. We can't just say, oh, I'm going to go to the GSA, and if it's on there, I'm going to buy it. We have to go through small business priorities. First, for instance, we would see what kind of small businesses there are on the open market, not on the GSA. And let's say there's a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, then we would have to go to them or if there are two or more. So a contract vehicle cannot be an excuse to eliminate the potential for small business that happens not to be on the GSA schedule. So yes, we use those sometimes, but that won't get you work. I think it helps, but before, if you're a woman-owned small business, for instance, I'm checking the open market first, and so are the contracting officers, to see if there are any women-owned small businesses there before we go to the GSA.
Okay, we also have another question. For the VA to buy using credit card, what are the business owner's requirements?
Really, they don't. They just have to be able to accept credit cards. That's it. I mean, it's really that simple. And so, if you can find your way in the door, let's say you sell signs, like little window signs, like vinyl copy for windows. You know what? See if you can get in there and post something somewhere. But yeah, you don't really need to do anything. And I see a question there. Do you have to be a VOSB or SDVOSB company to sell to the VA? No, absolutely not. And no, I mean, there are so many things that I wish there would be more small businesses available. So no, we don't only go to SDVOSBs or VOSBs. That is our priority. But keep in mind that, services disabled veteran-owned small businesses don't necessarily have, everything that the VA wants to buy. So no, definitely not. Don't think that way. A lot of people think that, we just sell to veterans. That's not the case.
Yeah. So you mentioned approaching VISN for a particular or very specialized product or service, and you also mentioned some of the ways to connect with them. Are there any more transparent or more obvious or networking ways to connect to VISN in order to pitch the need for, let's say, an innovative product or service?
And I hate this answer. Unfortunately, no. The best we can do right now, from what I've seen, is Pathfinder. Okay. Go on there, and for instance, if you want to innovate with a VA, if you have something that isn't necessarily a product yet, but it's really valuable, go through that. And unfortunately, the way the VA is set up is that contracting people manage small business. And so small business is part of the NCO, the contracting office. And I shouldn't be here, folks. I should be on the VISN side. I should be the gatekeeper, so you can give your capability statements and whatnot to me, and I can get them to the right people if they warrant such. And I've been trying to get that changed for years, and I almost had it changed about 4 or 5 years ago, but somebody really up high said no. And keep in mind, those are all contracting experts. And again, they're very small. They know their stuff. They just don't know small business. But unfortunately, that's how it's managed.
Another question, do they need to be in SAM to sell with the credit card?
Good question. I don't think so. No, because I don't believe they go in and check and vet that you are in SAM. And keep in mind, though, SAM, it's not hard to get into that at all. And again, ask your PTECs for help.
Do we have any other questions, or do you think, Richard, there's a questions that they should be asking that you get commonly asked by a small business?
They've already asked by far the most common question: who do I talk to? And it's really interesting that many people in the VA wouldn't know what to tell you because they don't know. Like, some people in contracting actually think they're a decision maker, and they're not. We in the contracting side, we buy things on behalf of the VISN, and so no. But again, no, you don't have to be some fancy company with high-tech equipment and all that. For instance, really quickly, here in Pittsburgh, there was a really small business. I forget what it did, but this owner spoke to a VA surgeon, and somehow this small business was able to start selling surgical sponges, but they were specialized to how the doctor wanted them. So what they did, I believe, is they went out and pretty much purchased a lot of generic sponges, but then altered them so that they would work for the surgeons because that's what they requested. And they did a really good business. So, don't ever think, see, if you wait for people to come to you, things won't happen. That's why you really need to try to be proactive.
Mhm. Are there certain categories that VA has trouble meeting their needs by purchasing facilities?
That's a good question. Yeah, you know what, there are. And one of them is, for instance, ambulance services.
Mhm.
Or believe it or not, laundry is really big. That's a high dollar. And one of the reasons is because sometimes, whether it's ambulance service or laundry, you have to cover kind of a large geographic area, and a lot of small businesses can't do that.
Mm.
Or believe it or not, sometimes a company as simple as landscapers, we have to hire a large company because if a hospital is, I don't know, wherever, and there aren't any landscaping companies around there, yeah, they have to go outside. So don't ever think that, there's no chance that you're going to get work.
Mhm. I think this has all been extremely helpful, Richard. We worked through the technical difficulties. I appreciate that. Everybody, we will share this presentation. We will edit the gaps. You don't have to wait through them. No worries there. But as a follow-up, please, you know how to reach us at Southeast PA PTech. If you need any further assistance, we are more than happy to help with the technical side and while you are boosting your capability side, right? So, Richard, I just want to thank you again. I know you have been a tremendous resource to PTAC and all of our clients in the past. So, and I appreciate the continued support. And I want to thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. I'd love to help.
Yeah, great. Thank you all for your time. Bye-bye. You're welcome, Dr. Marilyn. I will speak with you soon. Have a great day, everybody.